Greetings, I'm Squared here, and we are going to talk about solving equations with variables on one side. These are multi-step equations. So our goal when we're solving an equation is always to isolate the variable. That means get x or whatever variable is in the equation alone. Excuse my font, that one went to capital, but they're both the same x. Sometimes you have to worry about that if they look different, but just pretend that they're both lowercase x's. Okay, so we want to get rid of parentheses first. So we're going to use our distributive property. That's when we take that -2 and we distribute it into multiply it by both things in the parentheses. We can tell it's multiplication because that 2 is right next to the parenthesis. There's no sign in between the 2 and the parenthesis. So that's how we know when to use distributive property. So we're going to bring down our x because there's nothing to do with it right now. And then we're going to take -2 times x, which is -2x. We're going to multiply it by then we're going to multiply -2 times 10, which is -20. And then we're done because the parenthesis finished. So then we have an equals 12. So our goal is still to get x alone. Now we're going to combine like terms because we want x's on one side, numbers on the other side. So we're going to combine these. And 1x minus 2x is a -x. And now we're going to, since we have all the x's combined, we're going to move our numbers to the other side. So we're going to do the inverse operation. So since it said -20, we're going to add 20 because 20 minus 20 gets me a 0. So it kind of goes away. And you don't really need this 1 right here. You could just say -x, but I'm going to leave it there for right now to kind of help those who might like it that way. So now we have -1x equals 32. We're almost there. X is almost alone. We just have to get rid of this negative sign. So it's -1. It's being multiplied by x because it's right next to it. So we're going to divide both sides by -1 because a -1 divided by a -1 gets me +1. That leaves me just 1x, which is what I was needing to get x alone. And I'm going to say 32 divided by -1 is -32. And this would be my answer. Now, it's really important that you know that you can always make sure you're correct. So if you have a calculator, if you put -32 back into this expression for x and see if it equals 12, we'll know for sure if we're right. So I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm going to say -32 minus 2, and then I'm going to do exactly what that is. It's a parenthesis and then an x, but we said x was -32 plus 10. And if when I press equals we get 12, then I know for sure I'm right. If I don't, then I know I made a mistake and I should go back and figure it out. So we got 12, so I know I'm right. So it's always good, especially on a quiz or test, to check your work to see if you got it right. Okay, so let's try another one. So this one, sometimes kids get scared because they see it's a fraction, but we're not going to let that bother us. We're going to just think big picture. This is something multiplied by something else, divided by something else, subtracted. That's what we have going on. So think about the operations. We have multiplication. I'm going to treat r minus 3 as one entity right now, just one thing. I'm not going to think of it as an r minus 3. I'm just going to think of it as one, like a big X. So I have 2 times something. I have multiplication, division, and subtraction. So when we're undoing, when we're getting the variable alone, we want to not follow order of operations. We actually want to do the opposite. So we want to get rid of the addition and subtraction first. So -8, I'm going to add 8 to both sides because that's going to get rid of that 8, and that'll make it easier. It's not that you can't multiply or divide first, it's just that most people make a mistake because they forget that whatever they multiply or divide this expression by and this by, they also have to do it to that. So it's just easier if you remember to undo addition and subtraction first. So we have 2 times r minus 3 divided by 4 equals 58 because 50 plus 8 is 58. Now, there's different things you can do here. I noticed that this is reducible. So if I was doing this, I would cancel, and I'd say 2 goes into 4 2 times, and then I'd have a 1/2 there and multiply both sides by 2. Some people don't like to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to do it how most people would probably do it if they were just getting used to this. I'm going to multiply both sides by 4. Because when I do that, that's going to cancel the divided by 4. So I'm getting rid of the divided by 4 first. So now I have 2 times r minus 3 equals 58 times 4. Well, 58 times 4, 50 times 4 is 200, 8 times 4 is 32, so that's 232. Okay, so what do you do next? You might think that you do distributive property next, and that's okay to do, but if you think about this big picture, you think about, hey, that's a 2 times something and I need to get rid of that 2. What you can also do is just divide both sides by 2. And I find that easier if this side is even to do that first. So I'm going to divide instead of distribute. So I divide both sides by 2, and I get 2 goes into there once, 2 goes into there once with 1 left over, and it goes into 12 6 times. So half of 232 is 116. And then to get r by itself, all I need to do is add 3 to both sides. So I get r equals 119. But I want to check it to make sure I'm right, so I get my calculator back out. And I'm going to say 2 parenthesis 119, because that's what I think r is, minus 3. And then I'm going to take that whole thing and divide it by 4. Since this is multiplication, I can do that. Sometimes you'd have to say equals and then divide by 4. So you want to be careful with that. And it says it's 58. Oh, I forgot to subtract the 8, didn't I? So if I subtracted the 8, it would definitely be 50. So I know I'm right. I am confident. All right, last one we're going to do today. It's decimals. So the easiest way to handle a linear equation when you have decimals is to figure out what you can multiply everything by to get rid of the decimals. So I look at the number of places. These are hundredths place, tenths place, hundredths place. So the biggest one is the hundredths place. So that means if I multiply everything by 100, I'm going to get rid of all my decimals. Now some people don't mind working with decimals, and that's fine if you don't want to change everything. But most people get a little scared with the decimals. So I'm going to just multiply everything by 100. And if you did that in your calculator, I'm not going to, because I know that when you multiply by 100, you just get rid of the decimals. I mean, it moves over 2 places. That's why I chose 100. So I'm just going to show you 0.85 times 100 is 85. So I'm just going to do that now. I'm going to say negative 85, don't forget the negative sign, minus 5x, minus, now I said 100, so I have to move it twice. 4.5 times 100 is actually 450, equals negative 625. So now it looks a little bit better. I'm going to combine my like terms. So that's negative 90x, and then I'm going to write down these. I'm going to now get rid of my 450 by adding 450 to both sides. So I have negative 90x equals, and let's see, 450, 625 minus 450, or 450 minus 625 is negative 175. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 9 and reduce if I can, which I'm not sure that I can. So let's see, 9 goes in, 9, if you want to reduce in your calculator, let me just show you that real quick. You can, if you have a calculator with a fraction button, then you can say 175 fraction 9 and it will reduce for you. And it says it's 19 and 4/9. That's what that little u means. So now I know that x equals, my paper is slipping up here, negative, I didn't put the negative in, but there was a negative right there. Sometimes when you use a fraction key, it doesn't like negative, so I try to avoid that and just remember later. So negative 19 and 4/9, but you could probably leave it like that. I don't think there's 9 goes into there. We can check it real quick if you remember the rule. So 1 plus 7 is 8, plus 5 is 13, and that's how the rule for 9s and 3s to check for divisibility. And since that 9 doesn't go into 13, then I know that that's not divisible by 9. So this is a correct answer, and this is a correct answer. Now you can check that in there, but it's a little bit more difficult, so I'm not going to worry about that right now. If I was on a test or quiz, I would do it, but I'm going to leave that up to you. So good luck with that. Remember, isolate the variable, use your inverse operations, and have fun solving equations. M squared, signing out.